Thanks for tuning right back to Black Video News. Now, this is part two with this interesting conversation with the executive director, Kimberley R. Alexander, MOBB. You know the acronym, Moms of Black Boys. Now, we were talking about in part one, and I want to go right back into it because I want our viewers to know some of the things that have shaped you to kind of, you know, make an impact with MOBB, what you're doing as the executive director. And I brought that up, the criminal justice reform in Louisiana. I talked about the age legislation in New York, and then also the reform bill in California. So we talk about three different kind of major cities. We talk California, your hometown, New York, and Louisiana. Let's go right into it, Kimberly.
Absolutely. So, one of our pillars is partner strategically. And I say that to say that we enjoy partnering with like minded organizations. We know as an organization that we're not going to push the needle forward without finding people to partner with us. Any of the civil rights movements throughout the years that you think of and look at required us to work together. And so Mob United does that really, really well. We find organizations that are looking at the same things that we're looking at, and we partner with them so that we can really make an impact in our community. Bail reform, we had these astronomical bail amounts for individuals who were going into the jails, the criminal justice system that had really, non-violent type offenses. And because they couldn't afford the bail, that meant that they stayed incarcerated, though never proven guilty of anything.
Wow.
And we know in situations like Khalif Browder in New York, what that did, and it ultimately ended in such disparity that he took his own life. Um, so it was one of the things that Mob United has consistently really been passionate about. Raise the age. Many don't know what the age of arrest is in their local locations. For instance, here in Houston, the age of arrest is 10 years old. In New York, the age of arrest was 7. And so we targeted that because we want to say our 7-year-olds can make mistakes, our Black sons can make mistakes, and it should be okay. Those are learning opportunities. And we know that in many situations for our white counterparts, those are just that, learning opportunities, where for our sons, the amount of times that they're suspended and expelled from school for the same infractions that their white counterparts commit, the penalty is so different, and it
Right.
runs the gamut. And so we focus a lot on the school to prison pipeline and what that looks like. What does it look like in schools when our children are being groomed to be incarcerated? And so all of the legislation that you mentioned previously are things that we've been looking at to change how the outcomes happen and how the narrative and stories are told.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to talk about some of the programs because I'm a young guy. I'm a young kid growing up in Detroit back in the 70s. I ain't let my age out. But anyway, we know the YMCA. I talk about it. I talk about the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club. We had a pal with the big police dog, if you remember those. And some of those don't exist. Now we have organizations like the 100 Black Men that are mentoring youth. We have the Divine Nine fraternities, the Omegas, the Alphas, the Kappas. Some of these programs don't exist anymore. But one of the unique things that I looked at when I was doing my research with MOBB is some of the programs that you have. And it doesn't just emphasize specifically and solely on the Black male. You got some programs for autism and mental health. Let's talk about that because mental health is a serious issue in this country, all over the world.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to point out is that I can't intelligently speak about what programs still exist. I went to the PAL as well. I did the Boys and Girls Club and Girl Scouts and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I want to touch on the fact that moreover than anything else, and regardless to what still exists that once was, is we need programs that are designed for our Black sons, that where representation looks like us and where they speak the language that we speak. And I think that's the key of it, right? The key is we are starting to really empower our Black men and boys, empower our parents, mothers and fathers alike, to start speaking to their little girls and speaking to their little boys about who they are, to be their authentic self, to wear your hair any kind of way you want to. If you want to have locks, if you just wanted to grow out your head the way that it comes out, we want to make sure that we are empowering our children and our parents to allow their children to be their authentic self. And so when you start looking at what fraternities are doing, 100 Black Men, the Divine Nine, we want to really instill that we don't have to emulate and mimic what society historically has said to us, that we have to relax our hair, that I need to even grow mine out, that we can just be our authentic self and it is acceptable in every room that we walk into. And that's what makes these programs special. Mental health, we know that roughly about 60% of individuals who are incarcerated have a mental health diagnosis.
Right.
And because of that, they are in this environment where you're really not getting treatment. And no matter what your philosophy on incarceration and recidivism, and what punishment and reform should look like, the bottom line is that we know for those who are mentally ill, jail is not where they belong. And so first acknowledging that being mentally ill, having a break in mental illness in your mental health is not, it should not be stigmatized, right? You are still a whole person even if you have a mental health diagnosis. You are still a whole person if you have someone on the spectrum, if you're on the spectrum yourself. And so the programming that we do through MOBB United really is to inform, enlighten, and destigmatize what mental illness looks like.
Yeah.
Every last one of us, sometime in our life, we are stated that we will have some sort of depression and anxiety in our life. How horrible is it that the moment that happens, you become less than in our society?
Yeah, yeah. That's really good. Some of the things that I was reading when I was doing my research on Mob, and some of the things that you guys are trying to do is change perception, influence policy, demonstrate power partners, uh, s- uh, stagnagility, and also promote self care. You got to learn how to love yourself. But I want to dive into your podcast because you got a podcast, The New Talk. Let's dive right into it because it kind of coincides with what you're doing with Mob, and your podcast is reshaping societal perceptions and policies of young Black boys. Let's go right and
Mm.
talk about the podcast, Kimberly.
So I'm really excited about the podcast. It launches tomorrow, the 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It is called The New Talk for Moms of Black Boys. And it's called The New Talk because, like I said before, we want to change how we talk to our sons. We want to change why we talk to our sons. And we want to change how we talk to our sons. And so The New Talk is about cultivating a language between parents and their children, but specifically moms and sons, that empower our young men to be authentic, empower our young men to look in the mirror and feel good about the reflection they get back. We live in a society that makes us traumatize our boys. We have to take 10 and 2 when they're driving and be respectful, and all of this litany of all of the litany of things that we have to say to them in order to try and ensure that they come home safely. And so we don't want to traumatize our boys anymore. We don't want to be the primary people that are instilling fear in them. We want to continue to give them love, unadulterated love that's uninfluenced by how society is seeing them, and to build them up so that when they do leave our homes, they're safe because they know who they are and what they are. And then on behind the scenes, we're continuing to do all of the other things that MOBB United has been doing historically, which is influencing policy, leveraging our vote, making our money talk for us, partner strategically with like-minded organizations, and then also acknowledging that this is a marathon and not a sprint. We want to make sure that we are also taking care of our bodies so that we can continue to take care of their bodies.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Kimberly. And how can people now? Are you guys doing this on a regional or national level with Mob? Give us a little idea quickly on how your outreach is in the country.
We have 17 established chapters all over the country. All of our podcasts are nationally broadcasted on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. If you don't catch them live, which I hope you do, but if you don't, then our recordings also live on those platforms. And just one more time, the new talk for Moms of Black Boys, and it airs tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, Kimberly, how can someone that's going to be watching get connected with MOBB? How can they get connected with the organization?
You can always email me directly. My name is kim.alexander@mobbunited.org, or visit our website, mobbunited.org.
Kimberly, I love what you all are doing with our young African American males, the programs that you all have instilled to navigate our youth, that there is alternatives. You all keep doing what you're doing. Let's have a conversation sometime next year and catch up and let our viewers know exactly how MOBB is making progress with our youth. Can we do that next year sometime?
Absolutely. You just named the time and the place.
All righty. Thank you so much. Kimberly, Executive Director, MOBB, a great organization. And you can check her podcast out tomorrow. She gave you that information. Kimberly, it's been an honor. Thank you. We love what MOBB is doing. Well, that's it for this episode of Black Video News. Catch us next time. Go to bvn.com and you can get all of our content and see what Black Video News is doing. I'm your host, Keith Scott. We'll see you next time right here on Black Video News. Be encouraged.